Hi, I'm Julia, and thank you so much for joining us this morning for this Tune Into Tourism webinar. Now, for the last couple of weeks, we've been focusing on social media. We've been looking at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to, you can still catch both of those, in fact, all previous webinars on our YouTube channel, and that is youtube.com/HIE Communications. But today, we are talking about building and managing your online reputation, which is so essential, such a big part of both your digital marketing strategy and your customer satisfaction strategies. So really important to get that right. On the panel today, I've got Amy Pierre-Charlot from the digital. I really tried hard to get your name right there. Digital lead at Crieff Hydro family of hotels. Amy, why is your online reputation so important to you as a business?
Yeah, it's pretty much integral to what we're doing at the moment as we're looking to kind of improve our customer satisfaction and our service offering. So it's great to have a good review, obviously, but we know that we don't always get it right, and it's really important for us to find out about this and then to be able to make things right after that.
Exactly, so it's a great tool for your business as well, isn't it, managing that? And we've also been joined by Teddy Craig. Teddy, you're from Bright Signals, and it's how you interact with your customers online is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, how you interact with your customers online isn't just necessarily you speaking to them directly. If you're on a forum or something like that, or on social media, it can be seen by other people. So for someone out there, that may be the first time they've got any awareness of your business, and how you present yourself in that situation is crucial.
Absolutely. Okay, well, most importantly, we want to know what you're doing in your business. Where are you finding the issues? Are you struggling to manage reviews? How do you interact with your customers, at every stage of their journey, before, during and after? Share those experiences with us. Ask your questions. We have got Richard, who's going to be in the chat box. Richard.
Thanks very much, Julia. Yes, I'm here, and already we've got Andy, who is said good morning. Angela is in Orkney. Wendy is in Shetland, and we've got Alison in Lossiemouth, and Avril is it the Roulette Retreat in Melrose, or is that the Roulotte Retreat? It sounds like it could be good, Bit not too bad, bit dreich there where they are. But anyway, listen, do get in touch. This is live now, as we know, as a live webinar, but this goes up again on YouTube and is there later on where you can't see the comments. So any comments or any best practices that you have, do put it in the chat box and I will share it with the panel. And if you've got any questions, then I can get the questions to the panel as well. So do keep in touch throughout the show. Julia, back to you.
Yes, we really want your input. This session is very much for you. We want it to be as practical as possible. So, Teddy,
yes.
So important. As you said, a first contact with a business could be a review. And these days, that's how people are actually seeking out, that's how they're deciding, making decisions on where to book.
You've got so many options these days. And obviously, I think research becomes a crucial part of any holiday, where you want to go, how you can get there. And once you reach that point of thinking, where am I going to stay? If there's a few options in the area, you want to make sure you pick the best one. It's your money, it's your holiday, it should be a great experience. So you want to understand the experiences of others. So you might go and have a look at sites like Tripadvisor, or if you're on some sort of site like booking.com or whatever that accumulates offers from different hotels or forms of accommodation, they carry reviews on it as well. And if you can, if your first point of contact is you click on a hotel, the first thing you see is a terrible review, and perhaps worse than that, you see a review that's been handled very badly by the staff at that hotel. That's immediately going to be a red flag for you.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just hotels, obviously. It's every aspect of our experience when we're on holiday, when we're tourists. I feel like our whole culture has become we're constantly rating everything. Even when you get an Uber, you're rating the driver every time. So I feel like we've had a cultural shift almost, where that's become essential. To keep your rating.
I mean, we have become very used to doing it, and I think it's one of the challenges that's faced a lot of businesses in the tourism sector is, if you're committed to giving a great service to your guests or whoever's using your service, you're so busy with that and you're so caught up in the things that are right in front of you that you can actually see, like the rooms that you're tidying or the breakfast that you're preparing, or things like that. And the internet can sometimes seem like, oh well, it doesn't matter. It's not real. It's over there, and it's easy to ignore what's happening. But for the guests or the potential guests that you have, that is where they're finding out about you. And in the same way that if someone spray painted graffiti across the front of your building, you would get it sorted out as quickly as you could, because it's going to damage the perception of it. Imagine the internet is that magnified massively.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it. It's like graffiti spray painted across your business. Amy, you use online reputation management as an operational tool, don't you, for your business?
Yes, so we actually use a platform called Review Pro, which will then kind of collate all of the reviews from online travel agents or Tripadvisor. In one way, it's time saving for our customer services team to be able to respond to reviews. But on the other hand, it also pulls together the positive and the negative semantics of reviews. And from there, we can then create key performance indicators for the hotel operations teams so that they can then improve their service offerings and essentially improve the reviews there.
Mm-hmm. So you've got a family of hotels, so you're actually managing more than just one business.
Yes, we've got 7 unique hotels across the family.
Mm-hmm. But that's a tool that you could use even in a smaller establishment, you know.
Sure, I think because there's so many different outlets for reviews, especially from a hotel point of view, you've got your Booking.com, Expedia, your Tripadvisor, all these different platforms. It's a really good way to be able to time save and just to be able to respond to all of these reviews from one platform. Mm-hmm. And then when you're trying to, if you want to communicate back to your teams in maybe the kitchens or front of house teams that maybe aren't thinking about the online world in the same way that you are. It can be quite a visual way. You can have tag clouds that show in kind of red and green words how important certain things are. Is it maybe breakfast that's coming up as a negative all the time? So then you know that there's something there that needs a fix and that can actually be improved. Mm-hmm. And from that you can see how things then have improved. Do the sentiments improve from there?
Mm-hmm. So that's a really fantastic tool, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we use that. We'll get into a bit more detail later on. I guess we have to think about the customer journey from actually before they even come to you as being important in terms of your reputation online. So I guess even before they've come into contact with you, you need to be thinking about them and thinking about your tone in terms of your website and everything that's out there online about you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to make things consistent and to consider who, you know, if the business has been running for a while, you know who your regular customers are, you kind of understand a little bit about how they speak, what they're interested in, what kind of experience they want to have. And the way the messaging that you put out can reflect that, because you know that's what you want. You want to continue to service and attract those people. If you're setting up a new business, and again, you want to consider, well, who are we actually trying to attract? What is it that we've got to offer? And can we highlight all of those attributes? You know, whether it's, you know, if countryside is the main focus of things, then you want to reflect that. But also in the tone that you use, if you wanted to establish quite say like a formal kind of 5-star high-end business and give the impression of that, you would speak perhaps in quite a formal way. Whereas if it's something like a youth hostel or whatever, you're going to speak in a more informal way. And that's kind of maybe 2 ends of the spectrum, and you find your own place on the spectrum within that, just that reflects who you actually are and who you're speaking to. And
being consistent. We've had a question from Andy Martin. He wanted some advice on ways to encourage people to leave reviews without feeling like you're being too pushy. But he adds, we've only been open since November, so still very new, and balancing getting our name out there with not being too pushy is proving interesting. And that really ties into what you were saying there. If you are a newer business, you know, really setting the tone is so important, isn't it, before you start even thinking about trying to get those reviews?
I think there are, yeah, obviously, you know, if you're a new business and you're trying to get reviews, you're looking to get those from the people who've already stayed with you or eaten with you or you know, used your service. And you know from your own experience of being with them, interacting with them, people who've had a particularly good experience. And I would say, you know, if you've got a relationship, if you've had a bit of conversation with them, giving them a bit of insight into, you know, we're only a new business, you know, any word of mouth is much appreciated. You're not trying to be too pushy, you're just trying to empathise with them. But there are nudges you can kind of bring in to make it a bit more organised if you wanted. So say, I don't know, like, you know, when someone's paid the bill, if you give them a little card saying, thank you very much for staying with us, here is an offer if you stay with us or use our service again. And by the way, here are some sites that you can leave reviews from us if you have enjoyed your stay and want to share that with others.
Mm-hmm. So you can do that. Amy, I know that you guys actually are doing it a little bit differently, aren't you, in terms of how do you go about getting good reviews?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that we're not really sure of is our reviews. We are quite lucky that we have lots of reviews coming in so that we can see what's actually been said about us. But one of the things that we were looking at was that it's not just about trying to sort of encourage people to leave a positive review. It's kind of about how this can happen organically. So we've taken a slightly different tact, is to actually look at the customer journey as a whole from our website. What happens once they've made the booking, what information do they receive then once the booking is complete, even down to how long the check-in process takes when they actually arrive at the hotel.
You timed it, didn't you?
Yeah.
I love that. I love the idea of the stopwatch, like Challenge Annika.
And then from that, we're then looking to see where the pinch points are. Where does it correlate with our reviews? Where are people not quite, where are we not quite meeting expectations within this process? And from there, we can then make improvements. And from that, we're hoping to improve and increase our reviews organically rather than trying to push people into actually leaving a review.
I think that's a really great approach. And there's probably somewhere a combination of both, especially if you're a newer business. As you say, you're not struggling for reviews. You've already got lots out there. So you're in a position where you can do that.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're a newer business.
No, I think that sounds like a great approach because you're at the stage of optimizing. You have kind of got that core level of customer. You want to maintain that and bring it up and bring up their satisfaction levels. So I've heard that approach kind of described before as the kind of leaky pipe approach, if you like, of going through at each stage, checking where is customer satisfaction draining away a little bit, what can we do to correct that, and just fixing things at each stage and mapping out the customer journey the way you describe. I think that's a great way to start.
Absolutely. Richard, what's going on in the chat box?
Thanks, Julia. Well, Andy, first of all, has just come back and said, thank you very much for answering that question. That's very helpful. Just was a couple of comments have come in. Diane from Where Stags Roar says that she thinks it's okay to point out that small businesses rely on reviews, and we ask them to share what they like most to help others. And most people like to be a bit of a guide, so that sort of gets them going a bit. It's a good piece of advice. And then Susan in Edinburgh, morning Susan, she says that they use free to book for bookings at their self-catering properties, and they follow up with an email asking for a review after the guests have completed their stay. And then just a quick hello to Edna Williamson from Kingston on Spey. This is her first time watching one of our webinars, so you're very welcome, Edna. And then a question back for you guys from Susan. Might be coming back to this, but what review sites do people register on for tourist guiding businesses apart from Tripadvisor? Not sure if anybody can help with that, but Julia, back to you for now.
Okay, well, Amy, I'll throw to you for that question. So it's not just Tripadvisor, is it? What other sites are you pulling in from for your...
We pull in from places like booking.com, also across our social media platforms. So lots of people are really active, especially in the tourism industry and the hospitality industry, of leaving reviews, be that for restaurants or tour groups or hotels and things. So that's where we tend to look for reviews there, or even online comments. So quite often we actually use a platform called Hootsuite. So that's for social media reputation management. And from here, we can actually pull in certain keywords or hashtags, or sometimes people won't actually use your official account handle. So it's a good way to kind of pull all those the mentions in there. And you can also search certain things that are happening within the tourism industry. So it could be, for example, historic events that are happening if you search a certain hashtag. And then you can pull in that information, and we use it for kind of curating content to be able to then share on. So be it for our guests that might be looking for information on things to do in the area, or about people talking about us, and just to get to see what's being said out there. So
that's Hootsuite you're talking about. Can you explain to us, imagine you're talking to somebody who's never used Hootsuite before, because you are. So tell me, what are the actual mechanisms of it? What can you find on there, and what are the tools that you use?
Sure. Well, we, in the sense of using it for online mentions and to see what's being talked about online, we set up streams, which is essentially just separating the screen into columns almost, and each column can have a certain hashtag or keyword set up so that it will then pull in all the information that's actually all of the tweets or comments and things that have actually mentioned that keyword.
So what keywords would you use or hashtags
So,
would you look for?
For example, we'll look for things in the relevant area, so whether that's Lochaber or Perthshire, we'll look for events happening there. If there's something happening in one of our hotels, if we've got a hashtag set up for it, for example, Crieff Hydro celebrated its 150th birthday last year, so we had a hashtag set up on there just to pull in all that information. So just anything that's kind of relevant to you or relevant to the area that your business operates in, really. And then what we also use Hootsuite for is to manage our Facebook inboxes. So for us, we do this because we have the 7 hotels. So for that, if you were to jump into every single page, it would take quite a long time. So having this, again, you can have each inbox on the one screen so that you can see all of the messages coming in and actually be able to respond to those the messages straight from that one platform.
Right.
So, but if you were just a single business, maybe you could have it set up so that on the one screen you could have your inbox, you could have your timeline, you could have your visitor posts. So again, it's just basically to make it easier for you to manage and time saving, because we're all that's one thing that we are all pushed for time.
Absolutely,
So,
it's the thing that keeps coming up. How am I going to find time to do this? And how much time does it take then to manage, for example, what you're doing on Hootsuite?
So we kind of split it between different teams. So it's kind of managed by the marketing team, our resort sales team also, they respond over the weekends when we aren't available. So we sort of have different processes. So I'll go in and check reviews and things in the morning, and it'll maybe take me an hour to check over reviews and mentions, just to kind of get my head around what's happened kind of over the day before or over the weekend if it's a Monday. We also have the team in the office that are maybe kind of concentrating on responding to the messages. So quite often it's more ad hoc as and when these the messages come in, so that we are trying to respond to them in a timely fashion. You know, it's not
That's
that
so
we
important,
have,
isn't it? Yeah, getting back to people as soon as possible.
Completely. I mean, we've been talking about reviews and things like that, and things that are potential opportunities for feedback or things that you need to react to. But a lot of times people getting in touch on social media in a way that they might have emailed or they might have called in the past. They're using, you can get like a Facebook message that's an inquiry about bookings or stays, channels that you might not expect to be using that way are being used in that way more. So in the same way you wouldn't ignore an email like that, you shouldn't be ignoring a social message either.
So we have to see that as the phone ringing, and you have to answer it as quickly as possible.
We find that actually a lot of the Facebook the messages coming through are increasingly about the bookings and things. So it's showing that the mindsets are changing, so that people are looking to book through social platforms and things rather than just through your historic channels.
So less on through your website perhaps, and more likely through your social. So it's really important that you get that right. What about the analytics then on Hootsuite? What can you do there? How can you build a sort of bigger picture? What does it provide you with?
Well, there are lots of tools through Hootsuite that I've used in the past. We don't necessarily use those tools through Hootsuite at the moment. It's more just for responding to the messages and keeping an eye on what's happening for us. When it comes to online, the mentions and things, that is more through Review Pro that we get a lot of our information and a lot of our insight into what's being said through Review Pro. But we also use our Facebook Insights to see, who's actually talking to us, who's interacting with the page. So again, that we can tailor the messages and things to the audience that's engaging with our content.
And that's something that just keeps coming at every single thing we talk about. It's about, seeing who your audience are and really understanding what they want and engaging in that way. I've got a question from Paul Oldham. He says, is there a danger that people are more likely to leave a review if they've had a bad experience rather than after a good one, therefore giving a misleading impression to people looking at your reviews? What's been your experience, Amy, of them?
We kind of have half and half. I think when somebody has a bad experience, they are more likely to kind of want to then sort of share it with their peers. But at the same time, we do get a high volume of really positive reviews that shows that we are doing things right there. What I think is important is that just making sure that we do respond to them, whether they are the negative reviews or the positive reviews. And one of the interesting things that we found through using Review Pro is that you can see where the percentage of negative reviews and the positive reviews are coming from. So maybe it's that more of our negative reviews are coming from online travel agents. So is it that the way that the hotels are described, do we have to make any improvements there just to kind of manage expectations? Is that is there a trend from one certain platform where the reviews are worse? So then we would go in and kind of have a look to see what's happening there.
Mm-hmm. And Teddy, I think there might be a temptation not to respond for fear of getting it wrong, but actually it's so important that you do, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to bury your head in the sand, but the thing with responding to reviews is, I see there's quite a few reasons to do it. One would be, okay, you've got an individual who's had an issue, and possibly if you go on and can resolve it in a way, then maybe you win them back as a returning customer. From a wider perspective, again, it comes back to that thing of, this might be the first time people have any interaction with your brand or see it being spoken about in any way. So if you can come back and respond to it in a polite, professional, friendly way that appears open to feedback and keen to resolve matters, then it gives a better impression of you in that sense. And another thing is, in terms of whether people are more likely to leave negative reviews than positive reviews, would be if you're seen to be going in and replying and responding to things. I think the most keyboard warrior-esque of the reviewers might actually be put off by doing that. Sometimes people just kind of want to shout and they don't necessarily want a response, and actually the idea of getting a response might scare them off a little bit. If they can look and see they respond in a polite, professional way to every one of these responses, so me just letting off steam it's not really going to work out.
Bad. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think actually maybe there's a possible effect of actually negating some of those happening in the first place.
So prevention being better than the cure. Amy, you spoke there about another one of those tools, Review Pro. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to us exactly what that does and how it works?
So it looks at reviews from across a variety of platforms, and we'll pull them all into the one platform, as I've sort of I mentioned about the time-saving element there. Mm-hmm. But also what it does is it will compare your hotel to others across a global review index. So it's sort of a comp set of different properties. We also use it as a benchmark against our own hotels.
Right.
So always good to have a bit of sort of friendly competition there, so that they can try and sort of improve above each other. Mm-hmm. So what is good about the Global Review Index is that you can see where you are sitting in amongst your competitors or other properties, and actually it's not all reviews. It's not all about the kind of warm and the fuzzy aspect of trying to get that the feedback. It does actually have a direct impact on the business, because when your Global Review Index score increases by 1, it can actually see an increase of 1.4% in our revenue per available room. So there is
direct correlation, between what's happening. Oh, that's really interesting. That's so another reason why it's so key to get this right. So what else can you do then on Review Pro? So it pulls in from all the different sites. So Booking.com, Tripadvisor,
Expedia. All those sort of ones. And then from that you can then look at how the reviews are, whether they are more on a positive side or a negative side. You can feedback on a dashboard back to your teams, and you can respond to the reviews. So again, just more of a time-saving tool there.
And the other things you can use, for example, Google Alerts to
Yes.
see what people are saying about you online. Do you use that much?
So we have alerts set up for, again, keywords, anything relevant to the business, any kind of any members of the team that are maybe a key team member, just so we can see what kind of articles are coming in, news reports, things like that. We can then collect the content there, share it across our channels. So again, it's good for your content creation and just seeing what's sort of being said out there, just to kind of catch anything as well.
So it can be a positive thing as
Yes,
well,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it
of
can give you
course,
some content, so which everybody's always looking for new ways of content that they can share. Is there anything you should avoid maybe sharing, Teddy?
Yes, there's certainly been some experiences. I won't name any businesses, but there've been businesses in, say, hospitality or tourism who have made some missteps online in recent times. So one of the things that would come into that is bear in mind that even your personal social media accounts, people sometimes think, oh well, it's my personal social media account. I can say or do or whatever. It's hidden. Nobody sees anything. But you had an example in England about a year ago where the head chef and co-owner of a restaurant made a comment about having spiked a vegan diner, made that comment on their personal social channels. That obviously went beyond that, and the business, I think, has now closed down, was reported to Environmental Health. The story, reached as far as it was being picked up and covered in America, and obviously all the online review opportunities for them became inundated with negative reviews from people very upset and offended about that. So I would say try not to express views about people's own individual lifestyles, if you like. So stay away from any of the isms. Might be a good shorthand
General
for that.
life advice there, yeah. Stay away from the isms.
And good advice personally as well. But particularly if you're associated with a business, you want to be open and welcoming to all, and you don't want to do anything that could put people off and cause a PR meltdown.
Absolutely. So that's important, isn't it, Amy, that everybody in your teams sees themselves as being an ambassador for the business, and that includes personally. And you actually have social media. You have different members of different hotels who kind of have a look, keep an eye on that, don't you?
So we have within the hotels we have social media ambassadors. So they're actually looking at what can be shared within the team. So we look at our content sort of on a 3-month cycle through a content calendar spreadsheet. So this will then, we'll plug in things that are coming up, such as any sort of national days or any events or anything lined with the business objectives, send out to the social media ambassadors, who will then have a look and plug in any of their ideas. They'll also look and see what's coming up. So is there anything relevant? They'll also keep an eye on if there's anything exciting happening within the hotels. Has anyone stayed with an anniversary or has like a really nice story to tell for a more of a personal touch? And they'll then send the information or the pictures through to us, so that we can then share on the Facebook pages.
So it's tying in offline with online. Yeah. Richard, anything you wanted to add from the chat box?
Thanks, Julia. Yes, we've got lots of comments here. People are asking questions and answering their own questions, so not much need for us, really, with this great audience today. But a nice, interesting point from Peter Moss, who just says that he slipped from 2nd to 5th in Fort William, and they couldn't understand why. This was on Tripadvisor. He slipped from 2nd to 5th. Couldn't really understand why. And then he contacted Tripadvisor, and they told him that the answer was that the people ahead of him had more reviews than him, not better reviews, just sheer volume of reviews. And then, which is quite an interesting point, and then Diane from Where Stags Roar and Jane Slaughter are both just talking about the importance that they found for their businesses of Google reviews, and that Google review is something worth encouraging your customers to use, because Google then use it very positively for when people are searching online. So that's just a bit of stuff that's going on in the chat box just now. Julia, back to you.
Thank you, Richard. Google reviews. I feel like Google are taking over. They're taking over everything. Teddy, what
Google
do you know
have taken over.
They have, yes.
Well, yeah, with Google reviews, if you think about the different ways in which people can use Google to be relevant, to tourism. So obviously, if you're searching for accommodation, say, or restaurants in a local area, you get presented with a list, and quite often Google will sort those into near the top of the selection, and we pick out 3 or 4, and it'll have the Google review star ratings for those, and it'll show you the little map as well we can click on. Or if you start off on maps and you're looking and you're searching in a kind of, what are restaurants that are near me now, then again it'll show you the same thing. It'll show you businesses that it recognises, but it'll show you the Google review score for them. So again, that could be your first point of call for that, and if one's showing as 4.5 stars and one's showing as 2 stars, you're going to the one that's got the 4.5 stars.
Yeah, and that's affecting your SEO as well, isn't it? Presumably.
Yes, Google is always a bit the dark arts when it comes to understanding exactly how the algorithm works, but I think it would definitely be weighted. The reviews would be one of the weighting scores they attach to it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, so we do have our Google reviews also pull into Review Pro.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we do respond to those, and we do take them seriously, as with all other reviews. I think that yes, it is important for SEO and for your Google search and everything like that, but at the same time we're looking at all reviews overall, so we don't kind of weight more importance of, yes, we have to go and respond to these reviews. Anyone that kind of reviews us or talks about us on any platform, then that's, for us, is important.
They're just as important, because every individual is just as important, aren't they? And their experience. And as you said, Teddy, when we were talking about this before, it's like the word of mouth, which is how we would have found out about things in the past, is now just amplified by the internet, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. So I think people can get very scared and worried about things, but like you said, it's tying offline and online together, and the principles that you would have brought to a business in the tourism sector over the years still apply. Treat people properly, give them the best experience that you possibly can, and the word of mouth is more likely to be positive. If they have any complaints, handle them in a polite and professional way, and again, the outcome from that will be as positive as it can be. So the basic principles of running a successful tourism business, I don't think anything's massively changed by the internet. There are more opportunities, there are more pitfalls, but they all kind of come from the same sentiment and experience.
Mm-hmm. It's people, and we have to be human, don't we, in our interactions, and I think we say that every week as well. So Amy, we touched on a little bit earlier about emails.
Mm-hmm.
What is the experience then? What is the customer journey after they have left you? How are you trying to elicit that feedback, and how are you staying in touch, after their visit?
Sure. Well, once a guest has stayed with us, we then send them out a post-stay email, and this will contain a feedback survey. It's our own survey, so it's kind of pulling out the key areas that we want to know more about how their stay was. And from here, every guest who actually responds to these feedback surveys will get a response from our customer service team.
So a personalised response?
Yes, which, as sure you can imagine, it's no easy feat when you imagine the number of guests that are coming through our doors every day. So from here, our customer service team will have a look at the feedback coming back in. If there have been any issues, they'll have a look on the booking to see if there's any notes from the hotel teams. They will speak to the hotel teams. So it's quite a coordinated response between customer service and the hotel teams to find out what's happened and how we can then we can actually make things right for the guests should anything have gone wrong.
Improve the experience for in the future. So I guess that's a sort of prevention being better than the cure. If you try and catch any things that have gone wrong or any negative things in your own sort of trawl via email or however else you are asking, is there any other way that you're asking? Do you do that in person when they're checking out, or are there any other ways that you look for feedback from people?
Sure. At the moment, as I said, we're kind of looking at our customer journey as a whole, and one of the things that has been sort of talked about is how we can use the teams on site. They are the ones that are speaking to the guests continually, whether this be just checking how things are going midway through their stay, more in a conversational sense than sitting saying how are things on a scale of 1 to 5. It's more of a conversational checking in, making sure everything's okay. But as as I said, for us, it's less about trying to sort of push the reviews at this stage, and just trying to make sure that we have this journey all lined up, so that when somebody gets to the end of their stay, they feel like they have had a great experience with us, and then they will go on to share that.
So looking at the whole journey then, and making sure, as you say, the leaky pipe approach, so you're stopping any satisfaction leaking out of your pipe. Oh, that's amusing to me. Anyway, so can you give any examples, Amy, of useful information that you have gleaned from using one of these, the Review Pro? Is that right? Yeah. Give me an example of where you've got information there and then made a change.
Sure. Well, one of the things that we did see coming through from our reviews and our online comments as a whole was about the booking processes at Creve Hydro. So looking at the information that they get as part of the pre-stay process. So there is information within there about booking free childcare and about booking your restaurants and things, but it does tend to get a bit lost within the body of the email. And also, once you've actually booked yourself a hotel stay or a getaway, you don't tend to think about that side of things afterwards. You just want to go and have a good time. So we took the feedback that we've received from these sources, and we've actually looked at what information the guest receives in the lead up to their stay, and looking at how we can improve this with automated emails that actually arrive at certain points before their stay, so that we can pull out this information about to sort of check that everyone's booked their free childcare, or they've actually booked their restaurants and things, so that by the time they actually arrive on site, all this is already sorted, and they can get on with enjoying their stay. So this is still kind of in the process. It hasn't actually been rolled out yet, but once we do roll it out in the coming months, we'll then keep an eye on our reviews and the positives and the negatives coming through, and just see through the benchmarking whether this sort of section has improved, and then from there we can make any tweaks as required.
So see, you can. It's a great way to then you can use it as a tool to find out where the pinch points are once you've identified them.
Continually monitor it from there. Yeah.
Teddy, it's some businesses have taken reviews that are maybe on the ridiculous side, and they've managed to turn their caustic and witty replies into sort of a bit of a viral hit. But that's a bit of a risky strategy, isn't it?
It is risky. I've seen it done a few times. There was a hotel in Portree on Skye did it recently to quite good effect. I think, if you're confident in your tone of voice and your turn of phrase, and also that the situation that you're referring to, that the review is entirely unfair or false, and you can demonstrate that in an amusing way, then you can make that a viral success. But there's a lot of caveats in that. It's a very risky approach. So I would always veer towards polite, professional. There's the situation of recognise, regret, resolve, kind of 3 R's of PR that maybe come into it, where by replying to something, a review, even if it's negative, you're shown to recognise it. You've responded, you realise it exists. Regret doesn't necessarily mean you accept liability for things, but you can regret that someone's had a negative experience and resolve what is it you can do to try and bring things to a positive, resolution. And if you can take that approach to reviews, then I think that is probably the safest and most likely to be effective approach. Every once in a while, people manage to pull off something very funny in a reply to a Tripadvisor review, but that might not be your experience. So
no, and equally, the opposite has happened, where people have replied and it's had a really detrimental effect on their business.
Definitely. Again, there are examples from a couple of years ago of a venue where, and it wasn't even something like Tripadvisor. It was a wedding venue, and there was a Facebook group for brides, and brides were asking each other for advice, saying, I've been asked to pay this up front. Is this normal? And the person recognised their own venue from the description, waded in and said, I'm sick to death of people not reading our terms and conditions properly. And when others pushed back and said, I don't think you're handling this in a professional way, they simply doubled down and continued with eventually reaching certain levels of choice language that we can't go into, and ended up banning weddings from their own venue, from which I assume one of the main streams of revenue was hosting weddings. So, there are pitfalls in how you respond to things.
Yeah, and that one comment sent in anger could really,
Yeah, I think, anything you post online, you've got the opportunity to think about it before you hit post. It's easy. We've all made mistakes on that front, but you have got that moment to take a few seconds and look at it and think, and don't think, this is what I want to say, this is my response to the person in that situation. Think, is this what I want people to see if it's the first time they've ever heard of my business? And if it isn't, then delete it. And if you have acted in anger or you've put something out, then at the moment when you realise that, you really need to step back and again take steps to say, we apologise that wasn't the correct way to handle this, and now we want to resolve it in this way. Don't keep doubling down.
Yeah, very bad strategy. Richard, do you have anything else to add from the chat box at this time?
Yes, there's a few bits and bobs. I do like the idea of turning a negative review into a positive. I was reminded of the comedian Jason Wood, who some time ago in Edinburgh Festival, he got a 1-star review from Kate Copstick in The Scotsman, and he turned that review and he put it all over his posters, and he just put Jason Wood, a star, The Scotsman, which I thought was a nice way of turning a negative into a positive. I did wonder, I had a question myself. Just a comment here from Diane, who says, she's got some great comments, Diane, thanks very much, from Where Stags Roar, but she just says, take a day before responding to calm down, because ranting is very tempting, but it does look awful. But I was just wondering if Amy, we were talking before about the sort of other people in the organisation saying things and that having a detrimental effect. I was just wondering if Amy had any advice for any of the bigger organisations, do you have a policy for people who work for you for what they can and can't say online?
Yes, I think we do tend to trust our employees that they aren't going to say anything online that is that would have a negative effect on us. We do have within our IT policies and things, so when a new start they join the family of hotels, they will be reminded there that you are representing the business, and anything that you do say online could be reflected back on us.
Mm-hmm. So, Teddy, I'm just conscious we're running out of time now. What would you say the most important thing would be when it comes to sort of managing your online reputation?
I think what I mentioned earlier is be aware that whatever you put online might be the first thing that anyone sees or hears from your business, and is that the first impression you want to give them? Yeah.
Amy, what about you? What's the biggest lesson that you've learned in terms of...
Sure. I think it's about, we are quite a small team, and that you aren't always going to get it right, but it's always a continual learning process. So from us, everything that, from the reviews that we get in to the responses that we get, that we reply with, we will then learn from that. We'll sort of take what we've said and then be able to tweak things down the line, or just change the way that we respond. So things change so much that it is always a continual learning process. Mm-hmm. You won't always get it right. You do have to have a bit of forgiving yourself sometimes, that you are just human at the end of the day, and especially with a small team, then you aren't always going to have the time to be able to respond as and when you want to.
Mm-hmm. So just before we go, responding is important, but you have to do it in a way that's going to fit with your business, and trying to manage that. So giving yourself, I guess, setting aside time to deal with this, to deal with reviews, to look at your social media is really important in terms of managing your time.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that can vary depending on the size of business you've got. Obviously, Amy, you're across a lot of hotels, but you have a bigger team to reflect that. And sometimes for people, if there's only one or two of them in the business, it can seem really daunting. But if at the same time, if it's a business on that scale, there's probably less to deal with. So if you can think of it in terms of spending 10 or 20 minutes in each morning, checking things and using some of the tools that Amy's mentioned, like Hootsuite, or setting up Google Alerts or Review Pro, so that you can kind of compile things in a way that you're less likely to miss things, then it doesn't have to be as daunting as it might seem, and you can still make sure that you're on top of it.
Sure. I think also just to make sure that it's not just left online, you know, you are taking the feedback and putting it back into what you're doing operationally.
Yeah.
That's a really big thing for us.
Making changes on the basis of that, so it's positive for everyone, even if it starts off as a negative. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to our guests today for sharing your time. To you, Amy and Teddy, thank you very much for joining us. Keep an eye out for DTS experts doing workshops or one-to-one sessions in your area. You can go on their website and see what sort of courses they've got at the moment at www.digitaltourismscotland.com. Why did I say www? Nobody says that anymore. As ever, the full webinar will be available on YouTube at the end of today. So if you just go to youtube.com/HIE Communications, you can see the whole thing on there, as well as there will be some highlights and some top tips going up as well. So keep an eye out for that. Next week, we're going to be discovering how all the latest booking trends, how and why visitors are booking, and how you can sort of harness that information to sort of help grow your tourism business. So make sure you join us for that. And you can follow us on Facebook, of course, at Highlands and Islands Enterprise, or Twitter at HIE Scotland, where we'll be sharing other stuff on there for you. I've been Gillian, and for now, thank you so much for taking part.